Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David, as always, and this is another installment of our S.H.I.E.L.D. Rewatch Recap series, where we're going to go into all spoilers and all context for the show, and primarily this is for people who have already seen this, all 136 episodes, because we will spoil every little aspect, and even though this is going to be covering the 4th episode of Season 1, as has happened in the last 3 installments, invariably there will be significant character and plot spoilers for literally anything that comes into our minds. For example, in our last installment, out of nowhere, I uttered the words Rosalind Price and ATCU for the first time in probably years. And that is a plot point and a character that does not happen on this show for a long time of right now. So just to keep that in mind. We're back. We just did 3 episodes. This is going to be our 4th episode for episode 4 of season 1 called I Spy. I like that title. And again, to catch people up for how this works, we are going to be watching the episode, David and I, which is a rewatch, and we're going to be commenting over it for the most part while we're watching it at the same time. And again, for people who are new, we have two different experiences. If you'd like to hear the entirety of our conversation, you can in an audio-only format on our podcast feed, which is something... by the way, did my screen freeze? Are we okay?
Yeah, your screen is freezing, but I can hear you perfectly. So
why is it freezing? It shouldn't be freezing. It's connected to the computer. How often has it been freezing?
No, just a few seconds. Twice already. But
that is strange. That shouldn't be happening, and that's very unsettling. Okay, as I was saying, there are 2 different formats in which you can listen to the show. One would be audio only, and that can be the entirety of our conversation, uninterrupted. Whereas here on YouTube, it's more so of a highlights reel. David is going to be picking the best bits of it. But again, if you want to hear the whole commentary, you can do that on our podcast feed, which should be in the show notes down below on the video. And of course, in case it hasn't, and I don't think we've had the opportunity, or maybe we have, we just haven't reminded ourselves to say it out loud, that these episodes are dropping every single Friday. I'm sure those who have been regularly viewing and commenting, and it's been quite evident who you are, based on the comments, and we still thank you for that. Fridays will be the date. David, please carry this while I figure out what the hell is happening on my side, because it is kind of getting on my nerves.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you all so much for commenting. We've been wanting this for like a real long time, and I actually really get it is for this specific videos that we're doing. I am loving the interaction you all doing. This one, Silva Surfa 7962. Bear's AOS music is so beautiful. We both agree, very much so. And any chance that we hear something, we will bring it up. It gives me a chance to put it on the video, so that's perfect. Great observation about the gravitonium, Coulson, Daisy dynamic here, and the end. Yes, I was actually very surprised by Alexis's breakdown of that, how it all comes back together in the very end. Didn't really cross my mind on my rewatch, so I was actually really happy that he brought that up, because now obviously I'm seeing the episode a different way, and I think that's definitely going to affect the way I see it once we get to that episode. I always say nobody does character growth like AOS. Yes. This is all by the same person, by the way. Appreciate your honesty and being direct. Looking forward to these deep dives. Yeah, same. Let's see, what else was there? This one's actually the newest one. AOS was screwed over by movie people who looked down on their noses at the TV people. I can remember an interview on YouTube with the writers of The Winter Soldier, Marcus and McFeely, and they were asked about AOS connecting to their movie. The look of utter disdain that came across their faces, that their magnum opus should be mentioned in the same breath as that low-budget TV show, was excruciating to watch. The irony being that when they were eventually tasked by Marvel Disney to co-create the Agent Carter TV show for ABC, it turned out that they just weren't all that good at writing for TV. The medium of television requires a certain set of skills, and as we have seen with the various Disney Plus shows, those skills aren't readily available to Marvel Studios.
A lot of very interesting opinions and takes there. It's a lot to absorb.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping I do apologize for everybody involved here. I so I have to connect my phone to my computer, and I think I had neglected to. I think what was happening is I have to do this. I have to enter my passcode, and so it was like I think that's what was going on. So I think we should be fine now. I do apologize for those difficulties at the top. I'm crossing my fingers that going forward we should be okay. So there's some behind the scenes snafu. And again, if you are familiar in some way with the history of our long podcast, we are no strangers to difficulties of the technical variety. It just seems to happen. It's like what 3PO says in A New Hope. It's our lot in life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that's going to happen. And again, we want to, in unison, thank everybody for the comments. I do appreciate that. And I also I want to thank you for the wonderful variety of the comments. There's a lot to say and a lot to go off of those comments, as a matter of fact. The first one of which is how the Marvel Studios, I guess, the people associated with Marvel Studios treated the people associated with Marvel Television. A couple of things. I wouldn't say necessarily that Marcus and McFeely were not great at writing television, only because I do think Agent Carter is a good show.
Yes.
However, I don't feel anywhere near the same way about Agent Carter, the same way that I do Shield. I think that there's, and I know our own Alexis Moreno would like, she's the flip of me. Like she will defend Agent Carter, all day and all night. And I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't feel anywhere nearly as strongly as she does about the show. But I do enjoy Agent Carter, and I do feel, interestingly enough, look, I think it is the most successful spinoff of this. Well, it's the only, I think, spinoff of the show that actually, I think, went beyond a season. The other spinoffs, which is a whole other discussion, which were Inhumans, Ghost Rider, and Marvel's Most Wanted, two of which couldn't even get off the ground because they were canceled over, other reasons. And I think Agent Carter was short-lived, and I do feel that it should have, at the very least, received an additional third season. I can't believe ABC just, cut it. Especially because I thought it was doing really well as a mid-season break for S.H.I.E.L.D. And then even still, the idea that it wasn't brought back for a final season of sorts, now I understand scheduling of the cast can always be a difficulty of thing, but the idea that there was no interest of bringing the show back on Disney Plus when Disney Plus became a thing is still kind of stupid, I feel, because it was already a TV show. Just bring that stuff back. Now, I understand that in general, we don't want to just have everything come back, but when you're a company like Disney that literally is all about just bringing things back, you literally bring all the things back that nobody wants. But when there's ample opportunity to bring things back that kind of need a return, you don't even look at it and okay, fine, whatever. But Marcus and McFeely, I will say, look, I think you and I, David, have praised them in the idea that they were kind of the secret sauce at Marvel Studios. I think they were the ones that made those movies work, more so than the Russos and more so than definitely Kevin Feige. They probably deserve the most amount of credit when it comes to, and look, they wrote First Avenger. We love that movie. They wrote Winter Soldier. Great movie. We love it. They wrote Civil War. Again, great movie. They wrote Infinity War and they wrote Endgame. I do believe they also have a credit on The Dark World, which the Dark World is what the Dark World is. But the other movies are really good, and especially I would say that when it comes to writing television, those movies work in large part because they do write television. You needed to know how to, juggle all of those characters, and especially the last two Avengers films have over 50 characters in those movies. It was insane. And again, if you want, we actually do have some, I would say, pretty entertaining to listen audio commentaries on several of those films that we mentioned. I do want to say we do have one on Winter Soldier for sure. And we also have one on Infinity War and Endgame. If you want to listen to it, it's on the YouTube channel for sure. And it should not be that hard to find. It should be on our audio commentaries playlist. So it should be there if you are so inclined. But I do feel like they were talented in that regard. However, where I will give this comment a lot of leeway is the idea that there was maybe not so much bad blood, but there was definitely some sneering going around. I have listened to the audio commentaries of the Marvel movies, and Marcus and McFeely were on the commentary for Infinity War, And there was a comment that was made at the expense of Agents of Shield that was just very obvious for what it was. So there was it was in the scene after they finished the early New York battle with Doctor Strange, what's his name, Ebony Maw, Iron Man, and you also had Wong and Hulk and I forget what's his Obsidian something. I don't know, but the big guy. Yeah. He gets his hand cut off when Wong closes the portal, and it gets sawed off basically, and then it just lands. And then Marcus and McFeely make the off-color remark. At least to me, I interpret it as an off-color remark. That maybe you guys will find out what happens to that hand in Agents of Shield.
Oh man.
Which is totally a joke people make if you haven't seen anything beyond the first 4 or 5 episodes. Because I totally get it. Because again, we've been talking about how the perception of the show by a lot of people was that it only existed to do name drops, or even, we haven't gotten to this yet, but in a few weeks we'll get into the episode where it was marketed as the tie-in to the Dark World, and it literally starts with Coulson and crew just cleaning up the mess that they made in London. That's your tie-in. But I argue, though, they did something far more interesting in the actual episode with Asgardian mythology than the Dark World even, I think, did. But I guess as far as tie-ins are concerned, what people thought of as tie-ins would be like something that they would be, integral to the plot. But I think when that episode dropped, people were like, is this show just going to be them cleaning up after the mess and then not ever having to have anything to do with the main, plot of the movies? And I think that's kind of also another like moment where the show in a lot of circles became a joke, unrightfully so. And so I think like I understand why Marcus and McFeely would make that joke, but still not cool. Not cool at all. And again, there's a lot to say about the idea that there was bad blood between the TV people and the movie people. I don't know. I can't speak to how true this is, but when it came to interviews that were happening around the time of Avengers Endgame, to their credit, Marcus and McFeely were saying that there was a moment. And evidently, this was an interview where Kevin Feige was there, so he didn't say anything against us. But Marcus and McFeely were saying that there was a moment where they were seriously trying to figure out how whether or not to include all of the Netflix heroes, the Defenders heroes, as well as Shield characters. And evidently they came to a rationale that I vehemently disagree with. I don't necessarily understand the rationale because it wasn't that difficult to do, especially now when you consider where the MCU is right now, where they've had various different films that have been literally released where they rely heavily on you having to go see a different show. And whereas many audiences did not see said show, WandaVision was a big hit, but believe it or not everybody in the world saw WandaVision. Mm-hmm. I would wager more saw Multiverse of Madness, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on? So it's kind of ridiculous to me how that was the rationale that they were like, well, we're not going to include you here. And then just 2 years later, that just went out the window completely. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily know if that's true, but that's what they claim is what they landed on. But even look, when the movie came out, all of us, even Peter, our friend Peter, were like saying, no, there were instances where you very easily could have slotted those characters in, if not for anything, just the third act itself. Yeah, there was ample room
through the portals. That's fine. It would have been perfectly fine. Everyone would have understood, oh yeah, that's definitely Daredevil. They would have got, and then people. You mentioned it too. You went and saw Infinity War with friends who've never even seen a single Marvel movie, and they absolutely loved it. And they went back and saw the movies.
See, but there's a difference, though. In that instance, the movie was so good it didn't matter. However, in other instances, why Marvel Studios films have kind of gone down in quality. And there's no shortage of reasons as to why, and we've discussed that. But one of the reasons is because you've had to watch all these different things, and they haven't been interconnecting it. Whereas interconnecting it in a competent enough way where it caught you up, in an efficient way.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus and McFeely had that talent, and they could catch you up. And they were throwing things at you where it almost didn't even matter. Like, and I said, I had plenty of friends who I saw this with that had never seen a Marvel movie before, but they loved it. So that I think that's also a difference in quality for sure. But like you mentioned, the whole portal sequence. I mean, to me, what was I think the equivalent of the Marvel universe to what the Eagles are to Lord of the Rings are the helicarriers.
Mm-hmm.
Who specializes in helicarriers? Shield.
Yeah.
They had that moment actually in Age of Ultron, which was a really good moment. Just bring that back. And the thing is, Nick Fury only had like a cameo at the very bring in Nick Fury, bring in Coulson, bring in all those shields. All you had to do was show them on screen for like a second, and that would have been enough.
Yeah,
that would have been enough.
They didn't even have to be at the funeral, too. Like, you could have just left them out of there. Just bring them in the portal.
It would have made sense for Coulson to be there. At that point, he would have revealed himself, sure. But even then, I didn't care. All they had to be was just bring in the helicarriers.
Yeah.
Have them be there. That's it.
I still wish to this day, like, that scene where they were like, oh, there's, Thanos' people are like, there's something coming from the sky or something. I still wish it was the helicarrier instead of Captain Marvel. Dude, that still would have been so fucking cool if it was the helicarrier. Like, imagine it just comes in, maybe like 2 more come in, they start shooting, and then that's where you can also have the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, even Daredevil and the other Netflix superheroes. Like, they could have just been up there to like land or something. That would have been perfectly fine. And you could have just had Quake instead of Carol Danvers, because Quake is not equally, but she's very powerful, and she could have just zoomed in there and like quaked the entire thing apart, and it would have been as awesome. Look, the thing, although to be fair, that was the only real moment where I actually liked Captain Marvel as a character, though. It's cool and all that, but like, come on, that would have been so sick either way.
Yeah,
they didn't even need dialogue too.
No, I dialogue's not required. I just wanted a damn appearance on screen. That's all I ever wanted, Oh man, so it's like, again, that just feels. And then also it was an Endgame. There were deleted VFX, I think, templates that were gonna go and like appear on screen, but evidently, I think during the back, I don't know. At some point, they were gonna go. I need to actually look into this, but I know Daniel Whitehall's picture, the Hydra head from season 2, was gonna make like a little cameo as like a hologram image at the bottom of the screen. So that was also there. So again, for these people that say that Shield is not ever considered, there are moments, but evidently every time it's considered, it just doesn't ever get to screen. It just barely comes close, and then it ends up getting cut off for various reasons. So yeah, there's that. But again, to be clear, the movie people and the TV people, or the teams, did collaborate in so much that the movie team only wanted to know what, especially with more so S.H.I.E.L.D. I know the most about S.H.I.E.L.D. in that, well, actually, Clark Gregg even spoke to this a few weeks ago on Love in the Time of Hydra with Damien Dirac. He was a special guest star for one of the episodes, and he mentioned that there was this one time where it was already in the script, and they were going to shoot that day, and like maybe an hour before they were going to shoot, the movie people came in and said, you guys can't actually do that because it includes this, and we're going to use that, so you need to change that. The day of filming, and they had to like change it up on the fly, like what they were going to do. So like, hey, I'm not saying that there wasn't any kind of animosity from either side. I do think by the time that the show ended, they were like, look, I think that the S.H.I.E.L.D. team did the very best it possibly could with what they were given. But I do think at the same time, the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. family does have a bit of a saltiness toward the movie team for like kind of not thinking very much of them. I remember most famously so, it might have been during the time of season 4, I want to say, where Chloe Bennett was at a convention of some sort. And she just flat out said out loud at a panel, Marvel doesn't care about our show. I need to find that clip because I remember just like, we were talking about that on the Red Spotlight podcast years ago. This might have been 2016, I want to say, or 2017 when this happened. Actually, more so 2016, I want to say. But that was just like, I love how just brazen that was. Like, yeah, they don't care about our show. What's it called? Mark Kolpak, the VFX supervisor, which we have not name dropped yet on the show. But he is a superstar, and we'll name drop him many, many more times also. He was the VFX supervisor for all 7 seasons. But he's also gone on Twitter to kind of like express like, yeah, you guys don't really ever care what we ever did. I know Drew Greenberg also was a main writer for the show throughout various seasons. Throughout all the seasons, he also expressed like, hey, even recently, as a few weeks ago, I want to say that Ming-Na Wen went on a podcast with Katie Sackhoff, and she was also just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't keep up with it. I can't speak to like what happened there, but I do feel like our show just kind of was like forgotten about. So, yeah, everybody has noticed the rift that's happened there. And I think that people are more than valid in thinking that, someone at Marvel Studios very high seemingly has a vendetta against the show where at every turn it just cannot be recognized. Again, we are in 2024, and I want to say S.H.I.E.L.D. is one of the few shows left that hasn't had a original character from the show ever pop up in the movies. The canceled, failed, miserable, embarrassing failure that is Inhumans evidently warranted having a cameo from the show. And that was Anson Mount's Black Bolt, which was a cool costume.
Yeah.
It wasn't real. I assume it was all VFX, but it looked cool. That's what the show should have been and everything. But yeah, and look, Marvel TV is not innocent in terms of like fucking up its own things. I do think that overall now you can say that they just didn't have very much to work with, and I'm pretty sure that's the case. But it got to a point where they were making so many shows, the cheapness started to really bring everything down. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. for the most part got away with it unscathed. Not completely though, because I think by the time I got to the last 3 seasons, there are moments where it's like, wow, we're just using the same set. And I thought, not that we're not doing it now in season 1, but I think it's harder to disguise it a little more when we get to the final 3 seasons, and we'll get there when we get there. But overall, look, there's a lot to say about that, but I do understand why that comment was made. After 20 minutes. Next comment. What was the next one? I forgot. There was one in... Yeah, go ahead, David. Please tell me.
The last one was from Jack Dubs 4247. I didn't say his name.
Okay.
And then someone said, Gary Marshall 4447. It's fun to see reviews of Dalton's Agent Grant Ward as being generic secret agent guy, which was exactly the point of his persona at this point of the season. When the reveal came, he became the Grant Ward that we love to hate. Which, yeah, true. 100%.
Yeah. There was one. Let me see here. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. So these two. The music. Can we all just give a round of applause for David for the editing? I love that you are taking time to give actual examples of what we're talking about, because it very likely could be that even in the moment that I brought up, oh yeah, that Sky's theme, people could have like, huh? There are plenty of fans that just missed the music completely. So I do love the fact that we're bringing attention to other aspects of the show that just aren't talked about. And definitely one of those aspects is the music that Bear McCreary has composed. And I even though I kind of like, I was explaining it there, you actually pulling up the musical beats of those motifs, I think kind of like gets people to like, oh, that's the music that we're talking about. And you were actually saying to me you had a hard time finding one of those pieces of music. I know that the one that everybody knows, which is the second one that you play. Sorry, there was a fly in front of me. Oh. There was the Quake theme that you played second, which, by the way, that theme is both empowering and tragic at the same time, because the first time that was used was for her transformation, and of course that's when Trip dies, but then it ends up being very empowering as the seasons go by. That in and of itself might be the best piece of music that came out of the show, but that isn't to say that there aren't other great pieces of music. But you mentioned to me over the weekend that you were having a hard time finding the original theme for Sky, which I also want to, before I hand it off to you, I want to make clear. It is Sky's theme, but it also is used anytime that Sky's family comes up in conversation. So, for example, in season 2, there was a clip I shared with you where the theme was being used when she finally is fully reunited with her father and mother while they're having, dinner at Afterlife. But then it's also used, I think, for the final time in the 7th season when it was actually pretty emotional, because it is the Jia Ying of the past that had not been like scarred by Whitehall yet. This was in this is like one of the last episodes of the whole show, but of that season. And basically, Jia Ying is apologizing to Daisy for something that she doesn't even know that she did, I guess, in some alternate reality. And while she's doing that, the Sky family theme that had not been heard in many, many seasons comes back there. So again, that is the mark of a master that has built a mythology throughout the tracks that he has created throughout 7 years of the show. And he knows it very well, and he brings it and he calls it up when it needs to. And I think that should also be an example for any franchise, whether it be on the small screen or on the big screen, to remember, keep your same composer, because they can call back with that music, It's always disheartening when we're like halfway through a franchise or we reach the very end of it and then they get somebody else, but then they don't know the music really of the show, and so they are more inclined to create whole new themes. But it's like, hey, wait a minute, people already love the old themes. Just use those, but they don't want to use those, so it's a whole different thing. But you were mentioning you're having a hard time finding Sky's theme.
No, yeah, I couldn't find a specific moment, but then you mentioned, though, it's like it's in the Shield main theme, basically, in the overture. It's just like a little snippet of it. But yeah, as soon as you pointed it out, I'm like, oh, okay. Which is cool that like it's part of the main theme, because yeah, she's the main character. So probably should have figured it out, but I didn't.
It's totally fair, because I feel like there are people. There are people out there who have seen the show many times and probably don't even know that. Because sometimes there are people that just the music doesn't necessarily stick unless you're like specifically paying attention to it. That's the thing, right? But it also speaks to what we've been saying, is so much of the music that Bear McCreary made for the show is hard to find. It's very hard to find because it's not released officially. Like how I mentioned last time, I have them all. I have most of it on my hard drive that I've saved, that I found on YouTube, and there've been. I did share with you like an hours long video that had a lot. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to some of it, but it's a really good I think compilation of. It has most of everything. It doesn't have everything in it. There are other things that I'll share with you down the line, but yeah. The theme that we discussed just now it'll come here and there throughout the first few episodes. So we are going to try to take extra care to listen to the music. Another example that I forgot that, and we did hear a theme, I want to say in episode 1, Bear McCreary wrote a theme, a motif for bum bum bum. I'm not even going to try it. I tried it and I failed. You'll find it. But it's for Centipede. When it comes to the Centipede group, which we know is connected to Garrett, but more so Raina, because Raina's the one who's really the head of Centipede, because she's the head scientist. That basically is reused as a motif for Raina in season 2. After she transforms, into her
Inhuman.
inhuman form. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was thinking
I was thinking the animal, but I couldn't remember the name of it.
The word that was in my head was clairvoyant, because that's what she becomes, is clairvoyant, but it's not.
I was thinking porcupine, because she basically turns into that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember it at the time.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever caught this, because I don't mean to mention that here now, but it's like, did you ever think for a second that I did not know that the reason she even has thorns was because her evolutionary role was to protect the Daisy, because her role was to reveal to the Inhuman society who Jiaying really was, because they talk about, actually in season 3, they make it more clear that when Inhumans transform, there's actual, I don't know, I can't speak to the existence of some kind of intelligent design, but it very much is that when an Inhuman transforms, it's to fill an evolutionary need. So when Andrew, May's ex-husband, transforms into Lash, he also transforms. Ultimately, he transforms because something in nature or something kicked in where Hive was going to come back. And Lash ultimately reveals that the purpose that he's there is to, once again, interesting how both Lash and Reina were basically kind of like sacrificial lambs, because Lash ended up saving Daisy because he saved her from Hive's sway. Although, to be fair, you could make the argument that Lash wasn't there specifically for her, but he was there for all Inhumans who were about to become under the sway of Hive, but he was killed before he had a chance to free all the Inhumans that were being brainwashed by Hive, basically. So that's something that I just didn't put together until then. And then when Reina has this line that, because she has thorns, and it's the thorn that protects the Daisy, which is all just kind of like meta in a way. Maybe not meta, but like, remember how she's so obsessed with flowers?
Yeah.
It's just so, and then it's so like, it's right there in front of our faces, how intertwined, how beautiful this is all written. It's just great.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about Reina in the next episode when she's introduced. Anyway, and then the last comment about Graviton, Daisy. Yeah, I did not put that together. And I'm very happy to hear from both you and the other person that were like, a great observation, because I literally have heard nobody else ever bring this up. It just kind of occurred to me, and I'm like, oh. But I also, look, what I also meant to say, it doesn't just stop there. It gets brought back up in the series finale, what we're fighting for, the final episode of season 7, because here's the thing. So what we saw last episode was Coulson basically kill Franklin Hall to save everybody else. He tried to talk him down, but he couldn't. Skye was there to see that, and the mirroring was that down the line, at the end of season 5, she would have to make that exact same call, which is, she could not talk down Graviton, so she had to basically sacrifice him to save everybody else. And I think what was really interesting is that both of those instances involved Gravitonium. Interesting, of course, but the main thing is just the growth in characterization. That's the point where Daisy kind of like, fulfilled, but also not fully, because I think to me, the come full circle of her arc was for her to successfully do what Coulson did in episode 1, which was talk down Mike Peterson, which, if you remember, Skye was also there just right behind him listening to that conversation. And in the first episode, Coulson was able to use, just his heart himself to bring down somebody who they otherwise would have had to put down, right? And Daisy is never able to do that until the very last episode with her sister. When they confront each other, Cora, I believe her name was, when they confront each other on the on the, I guess, the mothership of the Chronicoms, as they're trying to escape, and Cora basically tries to kill her. She shoots her, and then like Daisy, like one of the best, I think, to me, one of the most like wow moments of her powers, she literally used like air vibrations to like block and absorb the blasts. I'm not sure if you remember any of this, but if you don't, just look it up and you'll see it. But she absorbs the power beams, and Daisy just refuses to fight her. And finally, in the last episode, she's able to win someone over and talk them down. Korra is the same as Mike Peterson, as the same as Franklin Hall, as the same as Graviton. It just happened to be that 2 of them were not able to be talked down, and 2 of them were. And I thought it was pretty amazing to me how, and I failed to mention the other half of the equation until just now, but it all works, I think, really well. And to me, I didn't know any of this until I was actually rewatching it just now, and I'm like, whoa, they really just like, and I can't believe no one else has talked about this. I haven't heard anybody else talk about this, and I'm like, I can't be the only one that thinks this, that sees the mirroring going on. I mean, there's a lot of mirroring that happens in all of the seasons, but that, I think, to me was like, wow, why was that there? To show the character growth. You know, Sky was not able to do what Coulson was able to do in episode 1 until the very last episode of the show. I wonder why. I mean, that coming all full circle, basically. And again, that whole finale. And again, if you're craving to hear our thoughts of that last episode, which we had very many. Look, you don't have to wait until the very end of this. We have those episodes on our feed. They're 4 years old at this point, and I'm sure you know that. But you got to dig through our feed on Red Spotlight. It's audio only, but I do believe there were YouTube versions of it. But the YouTube videos are just audio; they're not pictures. But they're also here on YouTube. Just go back and look at them, and you'll hear our initial thoughts on those. But we've been talking about half an hour already, that we have a lot of different thoughts elsewhere here that you can find. You know, I don't want to make this whole thing about things that haven't happened yet, but at the same time, that's part of why we're doing this, right? Like, it just to really to prove to people that this is not a waste of time. That there was so much happening there, and we didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So there we go. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and start. This is rather creepy. Yeah. I do want to say. I guess if anything else, and this is not to like bring down the rest of the episode, because I don't think it's deserved, but it may just very well be the visual that is those masks and those briefcases. But that image, I still remember that. So there's that. Because I mean, look, they look very, very creepy.
Yeah.
And I want to say they all get killed in just a few minutes in this episode. So there is that.
It just reminded me of Justice League. Those dudes going into the bank, carrying the briefcase.
Oh, yeah. Also, what I'm noticing, again, the music. The music is just hitting it. Especially here, what's the scariest part is as they walk in there and then they realize, oh shit, this person's here. And then Keela like cuts off the power, and then it all gets in darker. It also is interesting to see this scene because this is very obviously shot on location. There are a lot of people, and remember, this is an aspect of the show that goes away pretty quickly, I want to say, by the time we get to the second season. So it's like, it's kind of strange.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of people on the show. And again, it's cool, but, you know, circumstances being what they were, it was not in their control to constantly have on-location moments to shoot for the show. I don't necessarily feel, unless you think differently, David, that the show suffered immensely because it couldn't do this all the time. Maybe there were moments where, for sure, it would have helped, you know, a scene here or there, but I don't think we lose much by not having these around all the time.
No, I mean, at the very end, like, we just care about the main characters, so like,
exactly.
We don't really need a lot of other things.
Yeah, like this is the kind of scene that I think kind of
Wow.
what
More blood than Moon Knight. The most
Oh, there's
bloodiest show.
blood! Oh, yeah, there's blood. There's blood right there. Yeah, and that's weird because at this point in the show, there's not as much blood. When we get later on, there are moments where like, whoa, that's like, yeah. But yeah, that's interesting. You're right. There's more blood than anything in the MCU right there. But I was gonna say ultimately is like what you say. I'm more up for scenes that include characters. That whole opening thing is something that kind of summed up what the show was in these first 10 episodes. It was just more, I think, of an X-Files type of thing. And it doesn't go away completely. It does come back every now and then, that kind of opening scene, but a lot less after this first season, for sure.
What do you like best? The freedom? The view?
The solitude.
Got it.
I love here Coulson trying to connect with May, and she's just like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
With her saying the solitude. One thing I will say is the benefit of having this bus get destroyed in season 2 and getting the new Zephyr is I'm not a fan of having the cockpit being so removed from everything. Because in this bus, the cockpit it's a whole room, and it's not anywhere near the action. But in the Zephyr that replaces this in season 3 and all the way to the end of the show, the cockpit is literally right there by the command center. And you can have the whole cast be in that one large room. And I think I preferred that much more. David, what was making you laugh right there?
Yeah, we're gonna have this new night pistol working in no time. Okay.
Great. One thing. We're not calling it that.
Told you.
Yes, we are.
They're not gonna call it the night pistol.
Oh yeah, the night gun or
But it was just one thief, a woman. And she did it all with her eyes closed.
You can see that May is already working out. Why are we on this case? Like, look at how the questions she's asking him specifically.
There are people in the world with superpowers, right? What if this woman had ESP or something?
There are no credible studies that support precognition, telepathy, or extra.
Again, that's something they drop here because it's going to come back later in a few episodes when they try to hunt down the clairvoyant. And their theory is that he might have those kind of powers.
Akila Amador was a SHIELD agent. 7 years ago, she led a raid on one of Van Chat's gulags.
Van Chat, by the way, is a character who is brought up later on, and we actually get to meet later on in the 11th episode. And I believe they also mentioned Van Chat in the first episode. He's basically this kind of like person that sells information and, black market information, items of that kind. They bust him in the 11th episode, I want to say, as they're trying to find Coulson.
Not so special after all. I'm not your first protege. Relax, I'm teasing. I know I'm not a protege. Hell, I'm not even a real live SHIELD agent yet.
You two couldn't be more different.
Love how you hear that in the background, the shield motif. Which again, the shield motif operates as two functions. It is the theme of the show, of the team, but it also is Coulson's theme, really, at the end of the day.
I thought I could instill those qualities in her, so I pushed her. Maybe too hard.
But again, this is also just speaks to who Coulson is right now, Post him coming back from the dead, all the people he gathered up on this bus, how he talked about in the first episode, he feels he has a second chance at life, and he wants to do the most that he can by helping out the most people that he can. And that includes friends, old and new. And one of those old ones happens to be basically the first version of Scott he had in his life, who many believed was long dead. And so when Phil heard about these things, he realized she might very well be alive. And him not calling in the SHIELD task force to come on in and help with the manhunt, again, he's interested in saving and rescuing her than capturing and killing. So it just goes to show you, once again, who Coulson is, but also in another fashion, how more willing he is these days to just do his own thing and keep Big Shield at a distance, in this case. Which again is going to be a big thing that happens, that comes to a head later on the season and in the show.
It's the birthplace of Nobel physicist Zors Alfarov. Technically he's from Weizbis, but that's less than an hour from here, and I'm a bit disappointed that you didn't know that.
Oh, no, of course I know who that is.
This is one of those weird moments. They do use vans and vehicles invariably, but it's interesting. I don't think we ever see them use a van quite like this ever again.
You guys are only here to search for Amador electronically. You won't even need to leave the van.
Bus to short bus?
See Fitz. You see Fitz there like, yeah, we can't leave the bus. Great. Or the van, I should say. Yeah.
I like how they're all holding their bags like this, like close together and everything too. It's just like, again, it shows, I feel like that does again show their differences between here and like towards the end.
They're
where
kids.
They're just like closed off in a sense.
Well, yeah.
Confined and everything, which they enjoy. Like, again, he does the whole fist pump at being staying inside and everything. What happened second season with him?
Yes. I also would say that because they're holding him like that, it also gives them a more youthful appearance and characteristic as in comparison to the two grown-ups that are in the driving seats.
What are we supposed to do if we have to pee?
You broke protocol because you need a bathroom break. If there's nothing else pressing.
One last thing. Fitz wants to know if you packed any snacks.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit peckish.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Such children. I love it. Oh my god.
I know, right? It was like, damn. They don't know what the hell, man. They don't know anything.
Oh my god.
I mean, more so than just in a way useless in the field. In an instance like this, they're actively getting in the way.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Safety off. Okay.
Oh my god. And this gets me though too. It's like people complain like, oh, they're useless in the field. They're like, get in the way and everything. But it's like, this is growth, people.
They have to learn they have to learn. You have to show how useless they are to begin with, and then they grow. And again, that's the thing. This might be the first time where the three of them were left alone.
Mm-hmm.
In other cases, they had a Coulson, a Ward, or a May. But if they're not around, we just saw how well it ended.
But also, like, I'm just genuinely surprised. Like, wow, you guys were useless, really, like, in the field. Like,
And I'm feeling Fitz wants to know are there any snacks.
oh my gosh.
Quick, get the gun, get the gun. I need to shoot the person who's about to run us over. And again, she drops this. Oh man. But again, when it comes to this is where they deliver. Like they got the feed. This is where they can show their worth. They can't handle themselves in an action combat zone.
We have to bring her in.
We have to take her out. She's a weapon. I'll call HQ, see if we can bring a task force in to help
Our
us.
team can.
You hear that? That's Bahrain talking. That's Bahrain talking. You see how she hit the kit? I mean, look how quickly she was like, yeah, let's hit the kill switch immediately when she realized it's a powered person. So, and this comes up actually a number of times without even at this point watching it, knowing the whole context of what happens later in Bahrain. Like when it comes to powered people, May's like a bit trigger happy.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she's like eager to do it, but because she's so scarred by the threat of enhanced people, she doesn't take any risks with them. She's just like, take them out. Take them out. Like, I think when it comes to powered people, May is like, it's them or us. Not because she like hates them, but because she's just like, she doesn't fuck with those threats.
Mm-hmm.
Because she saw firsthand what that costs. Which is funny because when it comes to the that also becomes her, I guess, little arc that she has in the framework, but to a like much more like extreme degree. When Hydra takes over, they make her, well, she's a Hydra agent in the framework, but her main thing is she feels guilt because she let the little inhuman girl live in Bahrain, and that ended up causing an international crisis where humans caused an incident that caused them to then be hunted down, which is what led to Hydra, taking over. But again, it all comes from here.
You're the first person to do that in a long time. So I happen to believe you're an excellent judge of character.
Here's another theme that's being played in the background. We heard this at the end of episode 2. Dun, 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 and a much faster one that we just heard right here. That theme comes in and out, but it's mainly it's used, that I've noticed anyway, for moments when they're like bonding. Mm-hmm. So in episode 2, I guess you could say it was their first real bonding moment when they're watching the thing being shot into the sky. Right here where, Skye and Coulson are having a moment. I know it also comes back toward the end of this season. It comes back when they're all hanging out at the hotel by the pool after they escaped Ward and Deathlock. After they save Skye basically from being captured from Ward, that theme comes back. So just another instance where that motif is used, specifically more so for this season. I don't think it was ever brought back after season 1, so this might be one of the only season 1 moments. And I'll make sure and find that for you, David, so I have it. I'll let you know which track it is.
Yeah.
Whoever's monitoring you, do they have audio?
No.
And again, look how May takes the prerogative to do this. Like, she's not taking any chances. And without even saying anything, and again, at this point, we don't know the context, but because we know of the story that she's gone through, she's just like, again, taking the initiative to get ahead of this and neutralize any threats. And also, let's look, May in a lot of these episodes, like, she's a hard ass bitch. Like, honestly, that's just who she is. Like, she's just not very friendly. But again, that's why Coulson wants her on the plane. That's why he wants her around, is to fix that part of her. She's detached so much of her, like, humanity. She hardly ever allows herself to feel joy, So I know that a constant complaint of, like, May was that she's just, like, in the background, or she's, like, just, scowling and not, or very one note. That's the point. That's how she was here. The whole point of her being here was for her to grow and to begin to love and let others back into her life again. So,
why are you doing this, Coulson?
I need to know why a prox card is worth $30 million.
No. Why are you doing this? Why are you helping me? Where's the I told you so?
Which also implies a bit of growth there that we haven't seen. Because this is a Coulson. It's a reminder that Coulson had a whole other life that we never saw before in S.H.I.E.L.D. And in ways that he has matured. Him having the attitude, I guess, with his previous protege, if you will, of I told you so. And honestly, you get the sense here that despite the fact that we know that Aquila was basically forced to do this, you do get the sense Coulson feels like he failed her, not just in that regard, but just like in all kinds of ways. And he wants to make up for that with Skye.
To remove her eyeball.
Ocular surgery's not really my field of expertise.
We've got no other choice.
I love how they put on their fancy lab coats to this. This would be the first of I love how like jittery and nervous Simmons is. If she had any idea, man, this is the first of an ever-growing list of risky surgeries that she would have to perform. Like, she has no idea what she's in for.
Any idea where he's transmitting from?
Jesus, the table's dusty. I don't know if you could tell.
Oh yeah, I can just see it. Yeah,
like you can see
it is
like,
dusty.
What the heck, guys? Come on, clean it before shooting.
Владыкая ночь. Встретил двух украинских певчих.
One thing that's interesting here is you may have noticed behind me on the screen I have the alien writing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you remember, but we're about to see it for the very first time. Right here. And it's not exactly clear what it's here for. We know that this technology is cybertech. And cybertech is working for Garrett, who's working for Hydra. This would imply that Garrett is after this alien writing, or somebody else in Hydra is. I'm not sure if it's ever really like confirmed, or maybe it was just something that they didn't quite know themselves what this was going to be. But you're going to see right here, right now. We don't even know what this room even is, but evidently there's like important information here that somebody at Cybertech or Hydra is after. And then they snap the picture of the writing, and I wonder if they have the musical motif when they reveal the writing. Right here. Right here. Yeah, they don't have it. So, again, we're so early on in the process. I don't know if Jedmo or anybody involved knows yet what this writing is going to be. I have to think, though, they did, because we do see it in the next few episodes when Coulson is told about how many days he's been dead. In one of the images that's played in front of us, that writing is there. So I don't know if that's one of those things that they forgot about. I mean, I guess you could like theorize that maybe it was somebody else at Hydra, like maybe, I don't know, Daniel Whitehall or Gideon Malik, who wanted that. Obviously that's not the intent, because those characters don't exist right now. Garrett exists right now, and I guess the minds of the people who are writing the show. But to my knowledge, Garrett does not recognize this writing when he himself starts carving it toward the end of the season. So I don't know. It's one of those things that I still can't quite explain myself. But we know why it's there, though. It's to tease us for, like, we're going to see that writing again later on. Did you remember, David, that the writing was here?
No, I don't remember when the writing gets revealed. I thought it gets revealed when, like, Coulson finds out how it was revealed.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Actually, I know I mentioned that I rewatched the show, but I finally checked when I last saw it, and it was in 2020. So, like, I
4
really
years.
don't remember
Yeah.
most of these episodes, you know.
Nobody's ever seen anything like it. A couple of people think it might be alien, possibly an equation.
Well,
Must be important if it's worth $30 million.
well, somebody paid $30 million to get a picture of that. I wonder who. It's never quite established. I just think that maybe it makes the most sense that some Hydra head that is interested in alien stuff. And we know, too, the ones that I mentioned, Whitehall and Malik, will come into focus later on, but it's not important. What's important is they set it up here. Oh yeah, the writing. We think it's alien, maybe to decipher something. And then the other thing here is,
But what did they do to
she
him?
knows.
I'm sorry?
And Aquila saw right through May.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that May knows, and that's not telling. And she just backs away.
You know how
This
I know I'm gonna
one
beat you?
is
By losing?
You have a tail.
they do this a lot in the first few episodes. The tag is just a goofy little thing at the end, which not against, but I think it's toward halfway point of season 1 going forward. The tags usually are to tease what's coming up next.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first few episodes, it's, more like fun, breezy stuff. Right before we jump into our thoughts, as we did last time, let's go ahead and look up what was written and what the reviews were for the show. We're operating through the AV Club. This is written by Oliver Sava, published on October 16th, 2013. The I Spy episode received a grade of B+. And this is what he wrote. Can a TV series set in a superhero universe survive and flourish without any recognizable costumed characters in the cast? I'm going to stop there. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean when I say that people could not get over the fact that this was not, at least at this point, a show based around a popular superhero that had an iconic costume with it? I guarantee you, if it had been from the very start a show like that, people would have stayed on no matter the quality. And it's things like this that make me feel that way. Look at how the review began. Like, this is really what people were wanting, and it's just like, guys, can we recognize what the show is giving us? Sorry, that's just one sentence. Okay. He continues, it's one of the most common questions I've seen, regarding Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And frankly, it's a concern that confuses me. Thank you. Of course, it can survive and flourish as long as it does the things that a successful TV show should do. By the way, it's just so ironic to me that the show eventually does become about the main character is a superhero at some point, and she does get a costume and she does use her powers. But just not now. But anyway, he continues. Create well-defined characters and relationships. Tell a story with a clear point of view, and keep the audience entertained the entire time. For examples of great S.H.I.E.L.D. stories that didn't rely on superheroes, there are plenty of Silver Age comic books, not Silver Surfer, Silver Age comic books detailing the exploits of Nick Fury and his fellow agents. What these books offer is a different perspective to a world where superpowered individuals are becoming more prevalent. Who would have thunk it? Joss Whedon and Jeff Loeb had the same idea when they created the show, which was like, why don't we take a look at, the people who are, significantly more average in a world full of superheroes? Evidently, people didn't want that. Telling grounded stories of international intrigue within a setting that is considerably more fantastic than the usual spy story. It's a viewpoint that works especially well on a television budget. That's what we've been fucking saying. Which can handle secret agents better than superheroes. Yes, definitely, because superheroes all the time on the small screen does not always work out, especially, and I'm not throwing shade, I guess I am, who knows, sorry not sorry, but when you have a whole other network that has like 5 or 10 shows that have 22 episode seasons, the effects are going to be what the effects are going to be. Anyway, like David, I guess was the person that reviewed, not you, David,
Yeah,
but the David that wrote the review from last week on this same outlet, AV Club. I found last week's episode an improvement over the week before, and I Spy builds even more upward momentum as it delves into Agent Coulson's past by exploring Coulson's history with a presumed dead S.H.I.E.L.D. agent that he trained. The series begins to clarify the reasoning for Coulson's current ragtag group. There's a clear divide between the seasoned field agents and the rookies, with Coulson serving as the bridge between the two groups that incite both to action. Why exactly does he help these people? Which is a question that we've been asking, and the team also asks themselves throughout the episode. This episode suggests that it may be Coulson's way of making up for past mistakes, like Aquila Amador, an agent who disappeared in the field 4 years ago and has resurfaced as a thief with seemingly psychic abilities. ABC is putting a lot of money into the series and to make it look as close to cinema quality as possible. which includes filming on location, like I mentioned, in Sweden for this episode's opening sequence in Circles Square. That whole first sentence of this paragraph right here, ABC putting a lot of money, filming on location, bye-bye. We get to season 2. The episode switches to generic sets when the action moves to Belarus. And being on location heightens the impact of the tense opening sequence. Aquila lurks around the square as a group of masked men handcuffed to briefcases make their way to the subway, following them to a train car where she knocks out the lights, beats the men up, and steals one briefcase containing a cache of diamonds. The scene is shot to make the audience think that this is going to be some sort of terrorist attack. But the theatrics are intended to draw out Aquila, who is responsible for a string of recent robberies. Because Disney and Marvel Studios don't own the rights to the X-Men film characters, the MCU doesn't have any mutants, which means no psychics like Charles Xavier or Jean Grey. There may not be any psychics discovered in the MCU, but that doesn't mean it's not utterly ridiculous for non-Sky SHIELD agents to completely ignore the possibility of Aquila having mental superpowers. Sky, okay, let me get through here. Though not as like Aquila does have a robotic eye, okay. Okay. A newly active Melinda goes off the reservation to retrieve Aquila, and once she's back in S.H.I.E.L.D. custody, Coulson breaks S.H.I.E.L.D. protocol and goes after Aquila's enslavers with his own team so that he can exorcise his personal demons. After 4 episodes, it's becoming clear that the series will be built around 3 primary relationships. Coulson and Sky, Coulson and May, and Sky and Ward. It's easy, and don't forget Fitzsimmons, but I guess in this point they're not really the focus. They're just there. Yeah. It's easy to see the influence of past Whedon shows on this series, not only in tone and dialogue style, but in these relationships. Okay. More recap. While Sky and Ward are off doing their own thing, Fitzsimmons helped turn Aquila into a female Nick Fury by removing her eye. Okay. Yada, yada, yada. Thematically, Aquila's presence is tied most to Coulson and Sky. But in terms of plot progression, she's integral to the Coulson-May storyline. Aquila asks Melinda, what happened to Coulson? But she's not talking about a change in personality after a near-death experience. She wants to know what S.H.I.E.L.D. did to her former... She asked, what did they do to him? Her former mentor. Because that's not the same man she knew. Now that May has the seeds planted in her head, it looks like she's going to be the person investigating. No, she already knows. she knows what happened. I mean, not really, but she knows that they did something to him. Coulson's bond with Sky is at the forefront of this episode as he confronts his former female protege and realizes that sometimes teaching isn't about the total authority, but calculated compromise. The chummy, goofy Sky isn't the type of recruit Coulson is used to, and he has to alter his tactics if he's going to get her on his side. She has immense potential, but right now she's caught between 2 conflicting forces. If he's too aggressive, he risks scaring her away and compromising his entry point into the rising tide. It's unclear just how much Coulson suspects about Sky's true loyalties, but his eagerness to befriend her makes me think he's grooming her to be a triple agent. Okay. The entire cast is getting a stronger handle on the rhythm and flow of the dialogue, and the banter is less forced as the actors become more confident in their characters' shoes. Sky's reaction when Coulson says to her, I live outside the box, is a perfect look of impressed incredulity. She can't believe he actually said that cheesy line, but she also admires the passion with which he spouts cliches, which is something that Coulson does a lot. While their purpose is still primarily comic relief, Fitz and Simmons are starting to build a sibling-like dynamic that is loving but antagonistic. There's a small argument in the unfortunately named short bus is the van. Is one of the comic highlights of the episode, particularly the relief of Fitz's face when he finds out he won't have to leave the van for this mission, accompanied by a fist bump for added emphasis. This is, and look, a lot of people did, myself included, did feel like a lot of the first season was Fitz and Simmons, they're either brother or sister, like really best friend relationship. When we get to that part of the season where Fitz begins to reveal that he has feelings for her, and to be fair though, I think I caught it a lot later than I was supposed to. I think we're meant to believe there's a lot more to that relationship, especially when we get to Fitz, the episode that we'll get to in 2 weeks, I want to say. And then finally, I can't recall who wrote it, but I read on Twitter last week that Joss Whedon's TV series improve when the writing catches up with airing, giving the creative team the opportunity to gauge audience reactions. Maybe that, sure, but this is not really a Joss Whedon show. Joss Whedon was immensely instrumental in the development of the show and the first episode, and perhaps guiding the first few episodes. But after that, he's making a movie somewhere else. Stray observations, just other thoughts that they do here. Okay, that's it. I guess that's it for the AV Club. Thoughts on that review? Or actually, I should say, I think for the most part, I think that's a fairly good sum up of what we just watched. Yeah. I would say this episode for me personally, it's, I think to me, one of my least favorites, not because it's a bad episode. I think you and I just had a really good time watching this episode. Yeah. You and I operate under the idea that there is no such thing as a bad S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. So you put any one of those 136 in front of us, we'll watch it. And we'll have fun. And hey, there may be some gripes that we have along the way, but we'll have a good time either way. So it's like, that was fun. That was enjoyable. And ultimately, if the whole thing really, to me, why it exists, character progression. That's why it's there to get, and even if all an episode, especially these first few, are doing is spending time with characters, guess what? That's the point, and that's how you get to care about them in the show in the first place. So is this one of the best episodes of the show? No. Is it one of the best episodes of the season? No. Could you say perhaps it is one of the more forgettable episodes of the whole show? Yes. Does it mean that it's worth skipping? Not on your life. We were just talking about how you're seeing things happening the entire time that prove its value. For sure. David.
No, yeah, I agree. This is just definitely a fun episode. Loving the dynamic still. And I do agree with the article you read, how you're seeing the actors getting more comfortable with their characters and everything. You always, again, I pointed out in the beginning, like, you always notice that for any other show. So that's really cool. But yeah.
Although, to be fair, there are, again, not everybody agrees. So I just happened to pull up a review from IGN. And who was it? Was it Eric Goldman? Yeah, Eric Goldman, a long time, he's no longer at IGN, but Eric Goldman is a long-standing fan of the show, and I think he did these reviews for S.H.I.E.L.D. up until the end of season 4, where IGN decided that S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't popular enough to do reviews on, which pissed me the fuck off. But Goldman has always liked this show, but he didn't like something that we did here, so it's worth pointing out. The sequence where Fitz, Simmons, and Skye were attacked was really frustrating and lame. Even with it being acknowledged on the show, it is hard to understand why half of this team are not combat ready. I think we're all cool with the techie character who isn't there to fight, but this show has 3 of them. Okay, at least Skye is learning, but her ineptitude with that gun was worthy moment, not an endearing one. I respect that take, and I can understand why people would feel that way, but clearly, as you guys were just watching, David and I didn't feel that way at all. We were having a ball. That was a great scene.
I mean, I don't know what exactly their frustration is exactly, because like I can, if it's something because of like you don't feel any danger towards them or something like that, I don't really care.
Eric said there that he felt that because there's 3 techie characters who are not combat ready. I think to me it comes back to the thinking, that we haven't actually addressed just yet, but there were many people who felt in the very beginning that there were way too many characters and that too many of the characters were kind of the same. I never felt this way, but a lot of people did feel this way. So I guess that's an example of how people felt that way about that. But Eric says here, this is also a very good episode for Agent Ward, who I know some viewers have found to be dull. I actually quite enjoyed Ward's material in the pilot, and this episode was an especially nice spotlight for him. Ward pretending to... I think Ward was fun here. And he was actually kind of getting into the whole, thing of it with the glasses and I guess this is another instance of undercover in a way. Simulating... he got some nice action beats along the way. And one of the funnier moments of the episode when he was told by Akil's handler that he needed to seduce a guard to gain entry. That was funny, for sure. Although I think a funnier version of it, not that we're comparing one thing to the other, but I think a funnier version of the scene definitely came last year in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with Drax and Mantis. When they're trying to get into... Right? Remember that?
My God. Dude, I'm not kidding you. I'm like, what am I thinking about? Where, like, there was two people. One of them was like...
Is that what it was?
Yeah, like...
Okay.
I was literally... Oh, wait, I don't know how to explain it, but, like, that moment popped up in my mind, but I could not point it out as that it was Guardians of the Galaxy. I just remember two people... One of them, what was it? Were they trying to like seduce the guard or something like that? Like I'm trying to remember that. Like, but it never crossed my mind that it was Guardians 3. Wow, I can't believe you brought that up. Damn.
I mean, they weren't exactly trying to seduce. It's like that.
I remember now.
Yeah. Mantis like touches him, and the guard's like, "Drax, I love you," and that's how that happens. So.
Yeah, it's like you're in love with Drax. And he's just like, "No, stop doing that. Why do you keep doing that?" Oh my gosh! Wow. That's insane though. I was literally thinking of that, but I couldn't pinpoint it.
Yeah. So there's that. Overall, let me see. Let's see here. Generally the reviews were positive, the written reviews anyway, for this episode. Despite all that, here's something else here. Here's a contrarian point of view by Mark Buxton. He wrote a review for Den of Geek. And he wrote here, the show's weak link is still Skye. She plays the point of view character, but her quippy nature makes her a bit annoying. I'm going to stop right there.
I feel like y'all just have a short fuse or something. Like,
all of a sudden, quippy characters are not your favorite? I'm sorry. This was not that far off from the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, where everybody kept insisting that one of the best things about those films was how quippy Spider-Man was. Okay. He says here they were trying to make her the Buffy/Kitty Pryde character. I've never seen Buffy, so I can't tell you there. But the fact that remains, May, Ward, and Coulson are all way more interesting than Skye. I don't feel the same way. Not in this moment. I guess if you have the whole context of the show, they're all more interesting. But you were talking about just the first 3 or 4 episodes. No, that's not true at all.
To me, the most interesting character is Coulson because we don't know much about him. Everyone else, like, I don't find them interesting, but they're fun. They're fun to like see them hang around each other.
Skye's our point of view character. Like we're supposed to be the most attached to her and Coulson. Okay. All right. So again, so I bring out these reviews to show different points of view. Also, when you're reading criticism of something that you don't agree with, it gives us a chance to actually like, well, that's an interesting perspective, but we don't feel at all the same way. Not anywhere nearly. So overall, that's that kind of episode that we just watched here. Don't really have too many other thoughts, to be honest with you, about it. all it is, though, ultimately here is to show that Coulson, in some form, has grown, has changed. He's different. Yeah, he's different. That S.H.I.E.L.D. did something to him as a plot thing, but also from a character standpoint, it kind of gives more of a reinforcement as to why Coulson has Skye on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he recognizes she's a threat. She's an unknown variable. But like he just did with literally Mike Peterson and literally everybody else on this bus, he feels that he can be that person to help these people be the best they can be. And he feels that, I mean, I'm not sure if he ever says it out loud, but personally, I view it that he wants to make the most out of this second, I guess, life that he's been given.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we love him. And any episode that's doing that is worthy enough to exist. And also notice how, again, this is one of those episodes where you think, well, not very much necessarily happened in terms of plot. Sure, okay, whatever. Although that's not really true. There are some things that happen on the side that are like slowly moving things forward. But this is giving us crucial time to spend with these characters. The next few episodes, though, pretty big things happen one after the other. And we're still in the early phase. So I think out of everything in the first season, maybe this episode is the most that's like light on things for the most part. But as we've been talking about, there's no such thing as a bad episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not really. Although I've been looking on the Reddit for S.H.I.E.L.D. lately, and there have been some people who have been very, very negative on season 6. And we have feelings on season 6, and I've noticed there's been a common trend that season 6 is like, but I do genuinely feel there's a lot of over-hating going on. Season 6, you can make an argument that season 6 is the weakest season of the show, and we'll talk about season 6 much more when we get there.
Yeah.
I personally feel it's the weakest because it wasn't a complete season.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a setup for the final season. And maybe you can make an argument that 6 and 7 are one, but that's also not true because 7 feels like its own complete season. But I think what happened is 6 didn't get a chance to have its own finale to wrap everything up. So much of 6's finale was to set up the next season that things didn't feel all the way satisfactory. And then people had conflicting feelings about Sarge. But then also, people were like, this show isn't that good without Coulson. And that's a take, but people were like, they shouldn't have killed off the main character. That being said, well, they thought they were going to be canceled. So they were like, well, season 5 for us was the end. And now we've got 2 more seasons. We know we want to keep Clark Gregg. What are we going to do?
Make up some shenanigans.
Yeah. So, I mean, people have, like, a lot of strong feelings on the show, as we've talked about. And we'll get there when we get there. Definitely, for sure. But as far as today is concerned, we're going to go ahead and wrap it off there. I don't have I don't think there's any more lingering thoughts. Thank you all for listening and watching. We have appreciated all of the comments. And please continue to have a conversation with us. If you feel we've said something here that perhaps you have a different perspective, or even if you agree with something, please go ahead and leave that down below. And don't miss our next installment on Red Spotlight. And don't forget to catch our other material that we have, Red Spotlight, Turn to Page, Quest Center, so many of those other wonderful shows. We will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.